It's strange to see Sean Hannity suddenly let down his guard when he finally talks about something very personal. His whole career has been based on hard facts and passionate opinions. Recently, Sean Hannity, one of the most well-known Republican TV hosts in the U.S., did just that. After years of talking about politics on TV and in public talks, Hannity finally took a break when he was 63 years old and talked about something much more personal than politics or power: love. It wasn't just his fans who thought his story about the woman he calls the love of my life was shocking. It made the rough edges of a man they thought they knew smoother. Still, did they really? For many years, I worked as a dishwasher when I was 12, a cook when I was 13, a busboy, a waiter, and a bartender. After that, I worked as a painter, a builder, a picture framer, and someone who put up wallpaper. Talk radio was all I could think about all day. I was in Santa Barbara, California, one day when I heard that the nearby college had. Sean Patrick Hannity was born in 1961 in Queens, New York, in a close-knit Irish-American family with 4 kids. He was the youngest. His mother, Lillian, worked as a jail guard in a county jail, and his father, Hugh, worked for the court system. It wasn't a fancy way of life, but it was based on cooperation and discipline. Many people who knew Sean say that he was a very determined child, the kind of determination that either drives parents crazy or makes them great in the long run. He worked odd jobs, mowed lawns, and played with anything he could get his hands on. He was just another young man from Franklin Square, Long Island. He was first drawn to the sound of the radio, though. He liked to listen to talk radio late at night, when most kids were asleep. I was amazed at how speakers could start a talk across the whole country. By the time he was in his early 20s, he was sure he didn't want a typical 9-to-5 job. He worked as a painter, a bartender, and a builder. But the picture of a crowd and a microphone kept coming back to him. Get a free job at a college radio station in California. It was his very first big break. Sean thought it was everything, even though it wasn't fancy or expensive. At first, Hannity was just a small station in California. After that, he moved on to bigger venues and finally played in Georgia and Alabama. After seeing how hard he worked, the producers thought he could do more than just be a radio star. It was the best time ever. In the U.S., people were entering a time when politics talk shows were very important to culture. There were many networks looking for Hannity's strong style. In 1996, everything in his life changed quickly. Fox News, a new and bold network at the time, asked him to co-host a new show with Alan Combs, a political commentator on the left. People fell in love with Hannity and Combs right away. 2 points of view fought with each other every night, making conflict that people liked, and Hannity loved it. He told people that instead of just fighting, they should be heard. By the time the Sean Hannity Show became a one-man show, his voice was one of the most well-known in the U.S. He talked to leaders, said bad things about programs, and sometimes tried to start fights. One thing, though, stayed the same the whole time: his power. There was less noise from him when Hannity was on. Friends and coworkers often say how quiet he is and how much he values private, faith, and loyalty when he's not on the radio. Every night, America saw a different host. The man off-screen, on the other hand, was deeply thinking, in a way that only comes after going through hard times. He was honest about his family, his faith, and the little things from his childhood that he missed, like Sunday dinners, hearing his parents' voices, and being honest. Many people who knew Sean Hannity could tell that he was happiest in his personal life, even though he liked the chaos at work. After that, his story goes in a strange direction. I really believe that without God, I could do nothing. I believe that everything we have in this world is a gift from God. Before he became famous and worked for Fox News, Sean Hannity was a young radio host trying to make it. During those important years, he met the woman who would become an important part of his life, Rhodes Jill. Jill worked for a newspaper in Huntsville, Alabama. He would call her with story ideas when she first heard him on the radio. In no time, those work calls turned into emotional ones. There was no doubt that they were both young, driven, and ready to make a difference. There was a spark that quickly grew into more. They got married in 1993. The event was very easy. It was honest, direct, and full of the hope of two people ready to take on the world together. Hannity often said that Jill kept him grounded and cooled him down. Their family grew as his job did. In 1998, they had their first child, a son named Patrick. After 3 years, a girl named Mary Kelly was born. People who used to know Hannity often saw a different side of him. The parent who went to his kids' tennis games. The husband always made time for his family, even though he had a lot going on. There are, however, costs that come with fame. As Hannity's career took off, the long hours, constant travel, and attention from fans started to wear him down. In the background, his marriage slowly began to fall apart. He never talked about it in public. People who know the couple well say that the years of living together have built up an invisible wall between them, but he never does. Sean and Jill broke up in 2019 after dating for more than 20 years. There was none of the drama and scandal that usually comes with celebrities breaking up. The divorce was settled. They were just two people who had lived together and then chose to split up. They didn't say anything mean or lie in interviews. That quiet could teach you a lot, though, if you paid attention. It showed that they cared about each other and their kids. Hannity and Rhodes raised their kids together with a lot of class even after they broke up. Friends say that Hannity stayed very involved in their lives and that their children remained their top concern. Patrick felt his dad's presence whenever he played tennis at Wake Forest University. Hannity was also the kind of dad who always made time for Mary's schoolwork and sports. But Sean was having a hard time in secret during that time. He was used to managing things like how people thought about him, what they read, and what people talked about. On the other hand, you can't change love or death. People who worked with him at the time saw a small change. It took the man who was always sure of everything a little longer to speak and gave himself more time to think. He began to think more deeply by drawing on his faith and the quiet times in his own life. Friends say he became more private than ever, but not by himself. He allegedly became more careful. He stopped talking about relationships altogether, and he wouldn't even answer lighthearted questions about dating on air. A lot of people thought Sean Hannity had given up on love, but there was something else going on behind that guarded appearance. A slow, deep look at what it might be like to have a second chance at love. He had seen the good and bad sides of fame, as well as happy and sad times. He knew that life wasn't always like a TV plan, so he made a living that required him to give it his full attention. Something new struck me when he talked about meeting the love of his life when he was 63 years old. There's no doubt that Sean Hannity is a Republican. I'm not Ted Koppel, I'm just a guy. Because this is a conservative show, I really think there's nothing else I can do. Sean Hannity says that everything in the world is a present. When his marriage ended, he didn't say anything important or give a speech in public. He kept coming like he always did. A lot of people stayed up all night to hear his sharp political analysis and unflinching comments. But when he wasn't in front of the camera, everything was quiet for him. Many people who knew him well say that he started putting moments ahead of important events. He helped pay for his kids' activities, got back in touch with old friends, and even found new hobbies that had nothing to do with politics or TV. That change was huge for a man whose life was based on schedules. Don't think, though, that Hannity has stopped trying. His show kept doing really well and is now one of the most watched in the U.S. People continued to watch his normal TV show, but he was different in some way. Even though the tone was still hard, the man was learning how to balance. He said something lighthearted one time that seemed to show he knew how important it was to be thankful for the important things in life, like health, family, faith, and peace. He no longer seemed to want praise. As someone who had lived through decades of American media chaos, I knew that was a big time. In those slow years, Hannity set up a routine based on being consistent. Wake up and work out first thing in the morning. Then pray and get to work. His friends said that he became so disciplined that he looked like a monk. It was hard for him to go on dates in public or to big events, and he didn't spread rumors. His efforts to stay alone were very strong, but he still had a wish. Instead of always for love, the kind of bond that makes you feel seen even when the lights are off. It's true that everyone feels lonely sometimes, no matter how great they are. Also, Hannity had made his private life very private, so it would be hard for him to let someone back in. He didn't know it, but the building already had the second half of his story ready for him. Someone whose own journey had taught her strength, love, and grief. Even though you ended up getting a divorce, your faith kept you strong. Yes, that was a very hard time in my life. We now get along great, and are great parents, though. I've worked at Fox News for 14 years, and my name is Ainsley Earhart. It's not often that you see someone like Ainsley Earhart on TV. In the competitive field of television news, she had made a name for herself. She brought beauty and joy to her work, and she was born and raised in South Carolina. She quickly rose through the ranks and is now one of Fox's most-watched morning shows. Her face was wide with a smile, but she seemed calm and had been through a lot of pain. Because her first 2 marriages didn't work out, she was raising her daughter Hayden by herself. Through hard times, her faith had grown into a guide that kept her steady. There were a lot of ways that Sean and Ainsley's lives were alike. The two of them had used the same network for a long time. The public was used to seeing them, and they were both learning how to rebuild their personal lives after losing a loved one. At first, their friendship was what made their relationship peaceful. They worked together for years after meeting at Fox Studios. Something changed along the way, though. It started to feel more personal when we talked about things besides work. It was important to Ainsley that Sean was responsible, had faith, and loved his children. Sean liked that she was always happy, friendly, and strong. Respect was shown to each other. Soon, other people at work started to notice. They often traveled with the same groups and went to events together sometimes. While some people started talking about it, Hannity and Earhart didn't say a word, because they wanted to keep their connection a secret. They never said what they really thought about it or said anything against it. Sean planned for that to happen. He didn't want to let anyone into his heart again after getting married in public and being watched. People who knew Ainsley well could tell he was different when he was around. He laughed even more. He was lighter. On screen, she showed a kindness that wasn't often seen. They became close because they believed the same things about God, family, and the idea that everything happens for a reason. When they started going to church together, they would often sit quietly in the back to fit in with the other people there. It was real, but it wasn't a prom or magazine cover-worthy relationship. Instead of using tricks, they made a link based on what they both knew. Sean became one of Ainsley's most helpful co-workers when she started to host her own Bible study shows. He would praise her brains on TV and tell other people to watch. His friends would hear him talk about how impressed he was by her attitude and how she could stay kind in a world that loves conflict. They were drawn together by what they had in common, not by what made them different. Both were well-known people with private lives. In a business based on looks, they were both looking for something real. At first, they were just friends, but as time went on, their relationship became more real. Anyone who saw them together would know, even if they didn't talk about it in public. After hiding his feelings for years, Hannity found comfort in this link. It helped Ainsley remember that love can come up out of the blue, even after a breakup. Something happened after that made everything different. The big secret that would get a lot of attention and show everyone that love can make even the most timid hearts brave. "I'm Ainsley Earhart," they told him. You were with us at the com. First of all, congratulations on the book. Thank you so much." It wasn't a loud or exciting comment, and they weren't going to talk about politics or do an interview. It was easy. One of those surprising events that stays with you. Sean Hannity was speaking less loudly than normal. He usually speaks with a lot of confidence and calm, not in the loud, sure of himself way you might expect from a man who is standing up for what he believes in. The person who told the truth was someone who has kept a secret for a long time. He started by talking about how to be thankful for the people in your life who help you through hard times. Then he changed the subject almost without notice. For a short time, the usually flashy host looked like a normal person, not the political expert or media mogul he is, but a 63-year-old man who knows how important second chances are. He told them about meeting the love of my life, someone who understood him and had been there for him through good times and bad. This shocked everyone. They were definitely aware of how Hannity felt. He had never been so honest with them. He rarely talked about family or relationships, and he never talked about that part of himself. He did not name the person. He did not need to. People who had been following him knew who he was talking about. It was the right time, and what he said was nice. There were many signs that led to Ainsley. The moment was strong in many ways. I was moved by how honest he was, how he paused, and how he smiled just a little when he said, "At this point in my life, I'm just grateful." It changed everything when I said, "I found someone who makes me better every day." Sean Hannity's view of himself and other people. He was no longer the person who hid behind his job. Someone who had lived long enough to know that real power comes from weakness took his place. Sean Hannity has clearly moved on to a new part of his life, now that he is 63 years old. Even though there's been a lot of debate over the nation's position for decades, his most important insight wasn't even political. They were the main point. Being in love with someone for a long time doesn't care what other people think or how much time has passed. Some of life's best moments happen alone, away from the attention of others. Finally, I'd like to thank everyone for letting me join your wonderful Bible study. Sean Hannity said, I could always use more prayers. We all live in the best country God ever made. This made a big deal among people who don't usually watch him. People who had watched him for years were shocked. Nothing was added to make it sound better or get more attention. It was just the truth. A man who was known for being tough rarely showed such kindness. The news sources moved quickly. Some people were shocked, others were energized, and many of his friends thought it made him more likable. Being honest didn't hurt his image at work. It went further. People learned from the event that being open and honest is not a sign of weakness in a time when it's hard to find people who are truly themselves. A lot of people who used to like him felt even closer to him after seeing it. That event seemed to be a changing point for Sean as well. He stopped being so careful that people used to describe him. He didn't just become easy to read all of a sudden. It made him feel better to know that he didn't have to hide his love, even though he still stays alone. At 63 years old, he wasn't trying to start over. He was accepting the truth, which was that people liked him for who he is, not what he does. This made him feel grateful, connected, and calm. It's possible that that was the most important thing he said. It wasn't just a surprise for me. That event made me remember that everyone, even the strongest people, still want simple things like love, connection, and respect. Sean Hannity's story is about more than just falling in love again after a long time. It's all about being brave enough to start over. His story shows that it's never too late to be happy. At age 63, when a lot of people think their story is over, Hannity told the truth. But his journey shows that love never ends, that happiness can come back after a storm, and that life is always a surprise. Being honest and open is the focus of the second lesson. These days, toughness and power are often thought of as the same thing. Hannity's honesty showed that being strong sometimes means letting down your guard. He wasn't less strong because he was honest about how he felt. He went further. He said many times that showing feeling does not mean you are weak. It makes it stronger. The next lesson is about being thankful. Hannity didn't talk about his partnership as a success. He thought it was good. He talked as if he knew from personal experience how pointless success is when you don't have anyone to share it with. After everything he had been through, his words were powerful because they made him feel grateful. People change. This may be the most important thing to remember. Sean Hannity is not the same person he was 20 years ago. He used to be upset and angry, but now he is calm and grateful. Hannity's words made it very clear that the human heart lives on. As long as it keeps looking and hoping, it might find what it's been looking for at just the right time. Love.